I mean, whoops. Kessel Runner, you right. Honestly, let me show you that one more time so that we know what Kessel Runner is talking about. You know, Cray Cray for Comics says, "Damn, you right." The Kessel Runner, and I have to say that is an awesome name, Cray Cray for Comics. And Kessel Runner, you have a really cool name too. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Before we get into what we're going to be talking about with our keys and mail calls and all of that, you know we got to hit that intro real quick.
The Avengers. That's what we call ourselves. Earth's mightiest heroes.
I have an army.
We have a Hulk.
All right, so I know that this was originally supposed to be a video about the keys that I have that just came in, but last I checked, and I was just upstairs not too long ago, the wonderful Mikey, who sent me some amazing comics. I don't even know what they are yet. I know what's possibly in there. But let me show you this real quick. They were supposed to arrive yesterday. That's why I wanted to do this video today with the mail call attached. So I'm going to have to come out and do this one more time. Probably live on Instagram. Not quite sure yet. But in transit, arriving late. Obviously, today is not March 30th. So that's another thing. It hasn't updated yet. So I'm really hoping that it does. What is up, Comics by the Cover? Good to see you. So before I start talking about anything to do with Silk and the show that's coming out, I want to show you my haul from this week. But before I can even do that, I've got to show you my top 5. So coming in at number 5, I was hoping that this was going to be better. After reading it, I know that it's going to get there. This is kind of just like an intro, a rerun, or not a rerun, a look back at where we've been with Silk and what's been going, and what's been going on, where it can go, and just to kind of like reintroduce this character to a whole different group of comics readers. I honestly think that this is going to be a really great story. The fact that it's in my top 5 out of all the books I picked up this week should tell you something. It's just another amazing issue. What is up, Southern Comic Geek? Good to see you. It's a really awesome issue. I really enjoyed it. It is in my top 5 out of the, I want to say 10 books that I've picked up this week. So you can kind of see everything that I've picked up this week. I've got to go to 3 different places. This was my pull from today with one back issue thrown in there right here. And I'll go through that in a minute. But honestly, I was very excited for this week. It was a great week of comics. I really enjoyed picking up all of these issues. Very excited to dive into it with you. And I'll show you pretty much my top 5. First up on the list at coming in number 5 is Silk, issue number 1. I did pick up the variant edition. I actually picked up 3 different variants of this cover. I learned a lot reading this about Silk, stuff that I've never known because I've just never read any of her comics. A lot of them came out before I was collecting, and I have never gotten into her, but when I heard there was going to be a TV show, I wanted to jump on it, and I love everything spider people related. So I really enjoyed reading this. I definitely can't wait to see where they go with it. And I do hope that it is more than just like a 5-issue miniseries, honestly. So that was number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4 on my list, hold on, I just kind of messed myself up, was Spawn 316, another really awesome issue. This is actually the very first Spawn book that I've ever read, not the very first comic book I've ever read. What is up, Hidden Gem Comics? Good to see you. This is not the first, sorry, I said that very poorly. This is the first Spawn book I've ever read, not the first Spawn book I've ever collected. I have 3 or 4 Spawn books behind me, the Chadwick Boseman variants. This is now my 4th. I also have the Spawn from New Local Comic Shops Day. And there's one other one in there. I can't remember what exactly it is. But I really wanted to dive into Spawn as a character with the Spawnverse announcement and just all different kinds of stuff. I was very excited to start picking this up. And I mean, this cover is just absolutely amazing. So Spawn 316, a great comic, great cover. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And I'm very excited for Spawn 317. So this is the cover artwork for Spawn 317 that's coming out in April. This is the first indie comic, the first Image comic I have ever put on my pull list. So Spawn is going to be the very first comic that is not Marvel or DC that will be on my pull list. And I'm very excited about that. Shows a lot about me, expanding what I've been reading lately. Very excited to really dive back into that book and kind of see what it's all about. Number 3 on my list, a book that I really wanted to just absolutely fall in love with, and not that it fell short. It just wasn't exactly what I was expecting, I guess is the best way to put it. But I am still super excited for it. What is up, Ryan? Good to see you. I'm still super excited for what they do with this. So I'm going to get into basically what is going on with Flash right now. This is a brand new run. There has not been a new person, I should say, writing the Flash comics for quite some time. And Williams, I want to say, was the last one, or Williamson, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but this one is done by Adams and Peterson, who are going to be like the 2 main people on the next Flash stories. And this was a really cool story. I'm not doing spoilers in this video, simply because, number one, I don't want this video to take forever, because then I'd be sitting here talking about each book for probably 20, 30 minutes a piece, because they were really great books. But basically, Flash 768, the cover alone, this is a variant cover, by the way. It's not the first print cover A. This cover alone really captured me. I really enjoyed just picking this book up. Obviously, the cover A is the one that's in my pull box always. I usually end up putting it back because I really like the artwork that comes out in all the Flash variants. Obviously, in this, you've got Wally and Barry and pretty much everyone going on, running around, and it's just so cool. The artwork inside of this, let me see if I can find a good page to show it. This one right here, the artwork in this book is everything that I expect out of a Flash comic. I'm very excited to see where Adams ends up taking this from here on out. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. I mean, I think it'll be really fun. I think it's going to be a really awesome. I think it's going to be a really different Flash story. Williamson, it is Williamson, wrapped late last year and went to garbage. This was a step in the right direction. Ryan, I completely agree. I don't know why it wrapped up so poorly. I was really enjoying it up until, I want to say, 765. At 765, it fell flat on its face completely. And I mean, obviously you can tell that I'm a Flash fan. It's sitting right there. And if you still don't think I'm a Flash fan, there's a there's another one right there, exact same comic, just in a CGC binder. That was part of my video where I did CGC versus CBCS, looking at the two slabs together. The artwork was the weakest part, agreed. Not terrible, but there were some bad faces here and there. The last 3 issues were unreadable. The last issue, or maybe it was the second to last issue, was unreadable solely because it was a tie-in to something else. Endless Winter, I think it was. And it was just, I didn't read Endless Winter. I don't pick up very many DC books, as you can tell. This is the only DC book I've picked up this week, and mainly because Harley's not coming out this week. So pretty much I don't pick up a lot of DC stuff. So if it's tie-ins to something else, it's kind of like someone picking up Ghost Rider King in Black that came out this week when they haven't followed anything with King in Black. You know, it's one of those things where you got to kind of follow what you enjoy. And if you're not following what you enjoy, then you're not going to enjoy it. I know that sounds kind of silly to say, but I know I probably didn't say that in the best way possible. That probably sounded kind of asinine, but you know, Endless Winter was meh. And again, I think that Endless Winter was meh because they were trying to just, I honestly think that DC at the end of 2020 was trying to do filler issues to get to Future State. They weren't putting the effort into those. And I don't think it was on, well, it might have been on purpose. I don't truly think it was on purpose. I think it was more just, after this, everything's going to change. So whatever we do right here, right now, let's just have senioritis. I'm not going to be the writer on it after this. So why am I going to bother? That's how I felt with Williamson's last 2 or 3 issues. And sometimes I can't knock a tie-in for the writing simply because it's not their book. It's not their story, I should say. It's still their book. It's not truly their story. They're trying to pull what they have into this whole other thing, and it doesn't always work out that well. I can't even imagine how much time and effort goes into the writing and the developing of one of those Flash Arrowverse crossovers, because you have so many creative minds working together to come up with a cohesive comic book style TV ready 4-hour, 5-hour piece of work that just is seamless almost. Not that they're perfect. I don't want to say they're perfect, but they are pretty seamless. You can kind of move from one to the next and still not have watched all of Supergirl or all of Arrow or all of Flash. Yeah, they were, but I'd argue they should have used those last few issues to set up great cliffhangers to keep us wondering for 2 months instead of leaving a bad taste in our mouths. Once again, Ryan, I completely agree with you. Now with Flash, the other issue, if you do leave a cliffhanger, now Adams has to pick that up. So if he doesn't want to pick that up, if he wants to start his story somewhere new and just kind of gloss over it and Future State completely changed it, then that cliffhanger kind of falls flat, and it wasn't really a cliffhanger because they didn't do anything with it. It's just going to be interesting to see how Adams does breathe a new life into the Flash. I can't wait. So that was, again, number 3, number 4, number 5. It was tough this week. So I do have 2 books that are kind of honorable mentions. And even as I'm looking at these books right now, it's tough to say which I like the best. So let me just kind of dive right into it. Honestly, the wrap-up alone for Symbiote Spider-Man, the King in Black saga, the story arc, was just absolutely amazing. At the very, and again, I don't want to it's so hard to do this without getting into, without getting too deep into spoilers. So I'm just going to come out and say, this is not going to be spoilers. I will do a complete review of Symbiote Spider-Man, and this cover alone made me buy this book. Even if I didn't like 1 through 4, which I absolutely loved, this cover made me buy this book. It looks so amazing with how Null is kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes and kind of working Peter like a puppet, while at the same time just devouring everything in his path. And honestly, I can't wait to see what they do with Symbiote Spider-Man. At the very end, I will give one spoiler, but this is kind of a given with how well Spider-Man does and how hot Spider-Man is. I mean, that's not really a spoiler, right? Symbiote Spider-Man will return. This is now, I want to say, his 3rd series. We had Symbiote Spider-Man, Alien Reality, and now King in Black Symbiote Spider-Man. And honestly, this was a excellent wrap-up while still leaving time and ideas for where to go next. Real quick, before I get further into that, Ryan says, agreed, I am interested to see if Barely and Wally are both sticking around or if they're going to drop Barry in the first arc. I'm kind of hoping they don't drop Barry simply because I'm a huge Barry Allen fan. I don't get me wrong, Wally's an awesome character. Always enjoy reading about Wally, but I really like the dynamic that Barry has. So if they were to drop Barry, I almost feel like there would need to be 2 different Flash books. Now, obviously, being money-making people, DC might do that. They could easily just say, you know what, we're going to come out with a Flash bi-monthly book. Beginning of the month, we're going to do Barry Allen. Middle of the month, we're going to do Wally. I mean, that might be what they do. I wouldn't be upset about that. I think that would be a really cool way to do it. Start Wally off on his own separate path. I don't know if they've ever done that before, so let me know in the comments. I don't think Wally's ever had his own lengthened story arc. I know that there's been like times where he's had little bits and pieces of story arcs that kind of tied into other things and whatnot. But I don't think he's ever had a self-titled either. Wally is awesome, but Barry is my favorite. Agreed. Same here. I'm okay with letting Barry fade to the background for a bit and give us a break. I can see that. It's one of those things where it's like, you really want Barry to continue. Barry's the Flash that I grew up on. Jay Garrick wasn't part of my childhood. Barry Allen was the Justice League Flash. He was the TV show Flash, live action. He was the animated Flash that I always saw growing up in the animated TV shows. He was just awesome. Wally was the 90s. Really? Maybe I missed that. But Barry Allen was the one that I knew. I always knew about Barry. So with all that being said, Barry's my favorite. He's the go-to for me, but it is what it is. Again, I don't claim to know all of this. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I honestly, the last time I watched Wally was an animated Flash. What in the Justice League TV show with Legion of Doom consistently over and over again? What was that, Wally or Barry? Because that's the one I grew up on. And I'm saying right now, I thought it was Barry, but it could have been Wally. I haven't seen it since I was 8, maybe 7. So I don't know. Main flat. Okay. I stand corrected. I'll go and Google it or research it or whatever, just to make sure we all are saying the right thing. But honestly, I don't mind being wrong. I don't care. I prefer to be wrong when I don't know what I'm talking about. I'd rather get corrected and know more than say here, no less. Anyways, let's get back to Symbiote Spider-Man. This was an awesome wrap up for this miniseries. I really enjoyed the artwork in it. I really enjoyed the different characters. It wasn't what I was expecting, when I first started reading this. And like I'm saying, the artwork was just absolutely phenomenal. The return of Mr. E was really cool. And I can't wait to see what they do next with Symbiote Spider-Man. Another awesome read. So number 2 on my list for sure. And I know that I said I have 2 honorable mentions. So those 2 honorable mentions for this week, for my top 5, I just couldn't decide on where to put them, number 1. And then number 2, I just thought that the other books that I showed you were just a little bit better. Return of the Valkyries, issue number 4. I bought the variant edition of this. Definitely a really cool story arc. I believe this might be the end of their tie-in with King in Black. There might be one more. I can't remember. Let me check. Yes. So the next issue will be the Mighty Valkyries coming out toward the end of April. And let's see. A lot of these have had a King in Black like list of what comes next. I'm not sure if they did it in this one. But it does say that King in Black 5 will kind of wrap up the Valkyries and see what has ended up happening to Jane Foster. On the first print cover A, it actually says, is Jane Foster pretty much that did she betray the Valkyries? So if you have not read Return of the Valkyries, dive in right now because they are some really cool issues. The first one was kind of bland. The second 2 was about them saving the soul of Sentry, trying to find it and save it. And then this one has been really cool. Again, I'm not giving away spoilers, but it is pretty much what it says on that cover. Did she betray the Valkyries? Go ahead and read it and see what you can find out. Next honorable mention, and my wife loves this character. Another Marvel character. This was a really cool issue. I was very excited to pick it up, very excited to read it. I'm a huge fan of this character. And as you know, Black Cat's one of my favorites. I love the way that she's drawn. It's very cool. And basically, this cover is just wonderfully done by Jen Bartel. Definitely one of my favorite artists right now. She does amazing work. And all of these Women's History Month covers have been phenomenal. And this book definitely gets one of my honorable mentions for this week. Just an absolutely gorgeous cover. One that I was very happy to pick up, very excited to read. And I can't wait to see what they do next with her. It's going to be very fun. This is her 16th self-titled issue. So it's going to be cool to see where they go with this. Yeah, Barry was the Flash I grew up on TV, but pretty sure Wally was the headlining comic. Okay. And after Barry's death in Crisis on Infinite Earths in 85, Wally took on the role of Flash from 86 to 09 in DC's main lineup, but Barry returned in the Flash Rebirth. Interesting. Good to know. I didn't buy any comics because I wasn't collecting back then. So that's something new that you learn every day. It's awesome to learn stuff. My number 1 pick from this week. And I do have one little bone to pick with this. I don't like the reason why this character does what he does in this comic, but this is such an interesting comic. This is going to lead into so much more, in my opinion. This is going to be a really awesome 5-issue miniseries. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you need to know, go pick up this book because this Beta Ray Bill book was phenomenal. It was an amazing book to read. Again, I'm not a huge fan of why Beta Ray Bill is doing what he's doing. They kind of showed it at the very end. But It is very believable, very interesting. It's kind of down to earth, so I get it. And I mean, that's what I like about comics that I read is you can relate to the characters. If you can't relate to the characters, what's the point? So this is a character that I could relate to. I could understand why he's doing what he's doing. I can understand why he's going through what he's going through. What I don't like is that they took it that route. I think that there was more reasons than just the reason why they did this or why he would do this. But you also kind of get some Beta Ray Bill history in here. His not origin, but kind of just flashbacks to when he first became a cyborg, when Scuttlebutt first kind of linked up with him. The first time that he meets Scuttlebutt. It's very cool. It's an awesome comic. Very well done by Daniel Warren Johnson. The cover was by Johnson and Spicer. It's one of those books that's just so phenomenal, so iconic. A character that's so iconic, and a Thor Love and Thunder comic. You never know what they might do with Beta Ray Bill. So I definitely think that you should go pick up this book. Like I said, it was just an awesome read. Daniel Warren Johnson is one of the greatest comic creators of all time. Beta Ray Bill is so good. Did you read it, Ryan? Just out of curiosity? It's honest. When I brought all these books home and I started going, okay, which ones do I think are going to be in my top 5? I picked out 7 of them and started reading them. This was the book that I pulled out of the stack and was like, this is what I'm reading first. I want to know more about this character. He's such a cool character, and dove straight in, read straight through, and actually went back to some pieces that I didn't really get and kind of reread it because it was just, there's a lot going on in this book. It's really interesting how they're playing this dynamic of Thor and Beta Ray Bill. And it actually ties into the current Prey series. So I know, Ryan, you've been enjoying reading Prey, so it's really awesome. Yeah, I've been waiting for it since it was first announced. I love Daniel Warren Johnson, so this was an easy buy. Good to know. But honestly, and I didn't like the cover A. I wasn't a fan. I definitely had to pick up a variant of it because this is my Beta Ray Bill, I guess is the best way to put it. That's who I think of when I think of Beta Ray Bill. And on the cover, it has the monster that he fights in it. And honestly, he gets his butt handed to him. And that's kind of like the whole antecedent of him going off and trying to do what he's about to do. And I'm very excited to see where this goes and how this might even tie back in to the current Thor run. That would be awesome as well. So the other books that I picked up, some variants of Silk issue number 1. This is the actual first print cover, and then the Scotty Young cover. Pick this up for my daughter. This is going to be her very first comic. Had to pick up something that was just kind of really cool. Then, because it's a tie into King in Black, I picked up the Ghost Rider number 1. I almost picked up the Women's History Month for this one. Didn't really know much about that character. Didn't find it too big of a deal to pick that one up. So just because I don't know the character that well, so I left it on the shelf. I might go back and pick it up. Who knows? But this was a really great book. Haven't gotten too far into it yet. Just kind of started looking at it, and it looks so cool. The artwork in it is awesome. Can't wait to read that one. This actually should have been an honorable mention. This was another Women's History Month cover, and actually one of the first X-Men books that I've actually enjoyed reading in quite some time, that I kind of dove into. And I picked it up mainly because I really think that Emma Frost is a really cool character. Beautiful as can be, but honestly, this was a really great pickup too. And that's X-Men 19. Because I've been reading the other books and I wasn't a huge fan of the first print cover, the cover A, I picked up a variant cover, but this is the Union issue number 4. Definitely one that I want to finish off this series if it ends up finishing off with a 5-part series. Very interested to see what happens next and where it all goes. It could be the start of something really cool, or it could just fall flat and be just, it is what it is. It's a 5-issue miniseries, and that's that. You never know. And then Black Cat number 4, the non-variant cover, was the last one that I picked up for this week. All in all, that was I loved picking up each of those. And my buddy's mail call for this week, I posted these on Instagram. So if you have not seen them, just real quick, take a quick look. This was a video that I took of the comic that he got in the mail yesterday, Deceased number 1, the Harley Quinn variant, the Virgin edition. So that's the Harley Quinn. I can't remember. It's a Virgin edition. All 3 of those books that he picked up, the Stabby Bunny Signature Series 9.8, the Deceased number 1, and then the Deathstroke 32. All 3 of those books he got for under $35, which was awesome. They're all 9.8s. Obviously, they're not huge keys or anything like that, but to have a 9.8 slab for that cheap is kind of really awesome. Especially when they're cover buys. That's what they are. They're really cool books. So those are the mail calls that I can show you so far. I know that I talked about this at the beginning. I can't show you the mail calls that should be in the mail. I will check, or that are in the mail for me. I will check one more time while we're all sitting here talking. Yep, arriving late tomorrow. So it should be here sometime today, hopefully. Very excited for all of that. All those books that Mikey from Comics by the Cover sent me from his giveaway. Very excited for them. I know 2 possible books that might be in there. It's between the first appearance of Omega Red or the first appearance of John Walker. Very excited for either of those. Definitely would love to have those in my collection. I actually just sold an X-Men Omega Red comic. I think it was November or December. I raffled that one off. And I mean, I just wasn't a huge fan of it. I really like Omega Red. I like the X-Men, but out of all the ones that I CGC'd, that one was the one that was actually going to help me pay for the other ones that I CGC'd. So pretty much all of these books back here, with auctioning off that one book, I ended up paying for my whole entire CGC collection with that one book. And I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what we love to do, is use our passion to support our passion. So I was able to give that to a really awesome home for a really cheap price for them. And I was able to support my own comic passion. That's what I love doing. So with every bit of that being said, let's start talking about Silk. So I have some notes here that I just kind of wrote down as I was thinking about everything. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about with this. Originally, there was talk about a movie. Cindy Moon was in 2 movies so far, just the character, nothing major. No name drop except for just Cindy in the credits. I think it was the post credits of Amazing Spider, or not Amazing Spider-Man, of Spider-Man Homecoming, that we saw her credited for the very first time. Then I think it was Endgame where we saw her again with that spider dress on, and everyone was kind of like losing their mind over it, because it's like, okay, so now we're really diving into this whole Spider-Verse thing. We've mentioned Uncle Aaron Davis. If you have Uncle Aaron, you have to have Miles. Aaron mentions Miles not by name, but he says that he has a nephew. Then you also have Cindy mentioned in the post in the credits. All of this kind of ties in together and it was really exciting to kind of see. And we're like, okay, so when are we going to get a true live action Spider-Verse movie? That's what you're setting up for us. That's what we're enjoying. That's what we want to see. And as you know, my son's first slab is right here. It's actually Spider-Verse numero uno. It's not like anything major. It's not like this major key. It's a 9.6. So, I mean, realistically, when I sent it in, I think it was at $150 at a 9.8. At a 9.6 right now, the fair market value is like $20. I honestly don't care because I'm never going to sell it. It's his to do what he wants with when he's old enough to understand. So, all of that being said, I'm very excited for a Spider-Verse movie. I know that we all are excited for a Spider-Verse movie. I cannot wait to see what a Spider-Verse movie would even look like. So, if we were to get a Spider-Verse movie, who would we want to have in there? You need Peter Parker. You need Miles Morales. You need another version of Peter Parker. It looks like we're going to get 3 versions: Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. So there's already 4 that we know about in the MCU based on rumors. I'm not saying that they're in there right now, but based on rumors, there's 4 people who are in the MCU who could be Spider people. We also know that there's a 5th, and that's Cindy Moon. So you get these 5. Then we would need Gwen. You have to get the real Mary Jane involved. That would be really awesome. You also need to have oh, now I'm blanking. It would be really awesome to have Spider-Man Noir in there. It would be really just to have like that other little bit, but you need to have Miguel O'Hara. That's my 8. You need so Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, Cindy Moon. You need Spider-Woman, and then you need Madam Web. Those are the 10 people, Spider people, who need to be in a Spider-Verse movie, in my opinion. In order to get a live-action Spider-Verse movie that allows for the best dynamic, those 10 people would be involved. The weight, the gravity of that situation, the ability to put 10 Spider people on one screen and have it mean something and have it not just be some stupid story to say, we made a Spider-Verse movie, that is where it kind of falls into how would we do this? So I think Sony is doing right by Cindy Moon Silk. Originally, we were going to get a separate one-off movie or maybe a trilogy movie. We really don't know what it was going to look like, but there was an announcement that basically said there's going to be a Silk movie. Cindy Moon is going to be part of the Spider-Verse. Oh, the 11th person that you would need for a Spider-Verse movie would be Venom. He's got to be in there somehow. So we know that Peter Parker simply was not the only person who's ever been bitten by a radioactive spider. There's many, many other people, and Cindy Moon was actually there the day that he got bit. She was known as Silk well after, because when she first got bit, she was actually locked up for 10 years to kind of pretty much following everything that we know. We're we want to see something along the lines of a Silk movie that isn't truly an origin story, but something that would kind of push the Peter Parker story forward, kind of move everything in a different direction, kind of build up to a Spider-Verse. We don't need another origin story movie. Basically, if we were to get an origin story, what that might look like is Cindy getting bit at the same time Peter was. So obviously this is completely pre-production. There is no movie in the works anymore. Now it's been announced that it's going to be a TV show. So this TV show, what could it possibly look like? It would probably include one of Silk's villains. Obviously, I'll get into that in a second, but it kind of is, I'd say we're about 2 to 3 years away from anything actually being released. Any release date is probably going to be 2023 to 2024. They're not going to push this out quickly. It has to be done right. Sony does not need to rush. Another question that I kind of brought up is, where would we see this? Now, this could be any place. Sony, we don't really know much about Sony when it comes to, or at least I don't know much about Sony when it comes to like them releasing stuff on streaming services, because they've never really done it before from what I know. Now, I could see them doing it through Amazon. I could see them doing it through Hulu, or I could see them doing it, and this would be very difficult and probably the most impossible one, unless something major happens in the next 2 to 3 years that would change this, but Disney Plus. There's a reason why Spider-Man, Homecoming, Far From Home, and Venom are not on Disney Plus. There's a reason for that. We all know the reason. Sony has the rights to distribute, Marvel has the rights to make, and the rights to make action figures. Pretty much that's the simplest way I can put that. So it would be interesting to see what is going on. But let's talk about who is Silk. Who is this mystery Spider-Woman who has never graced our presence in pretty much anything? She's not in Into the Spider-Verse. She's not in any live action form except for in passing, and never mentioned by the name Silk. We know that she's there, but can we say that she's there if they don't say she is? Is this going to be the Silk that's in the MCU, or is this going to be a Silk that's in a different dimension, a different timeline that jumps into our current MCU Sony Spider-Man timeline? That's a big question that we can't really answer yet. We're not quite sure, but we can kind of talk about it. So Silk is a web-slinging superhero, obviously, from the Marvel universe, and she was introduced by Dan Slott in the 2014 series Spider-Verse, and pretty much her very, very first comic where she was even introduced was Amazing Spider-Man. So Amazing Spider-Man 4 was just a really cool comic. Dove into a lot about her. We saw her in a cameo earlier in that same series. I've never been able to pick that up. It's always kind of eluded me. But Silk's real name, as I've said, is Cindy Moon. On the same day that Peter was bit, she was also bit. So there's some time in there, obviously, that Peter's bit, and then we see Silk. If this happens in the MCU, Peter's already been bit. In the comics, something major happens. And this is already number one of why they can't, unless they retcon, follow the comics to the letter. So she spends her teen years in basically being locked up. So Cindy finds out that she has powers. Ezekiel Sims, who kind of has similar powers, trains her, and then locks her up. Trains her and then locks her up. If we were to see Silk in this, Ezekiel Sims would be that trainer if they follow the comics. Ezekiel Sims trains her for a few years. We know that Peter, at the time of Homecoming, has had his powers for a very short amount of time. So we could technically be seeing Silk in a realm where she is in that training phase. But this means that she was snapped away. If she wasn't snapped away and Peter and her were on the same field trip, she would most likely be roughly the same age as Peter in the MCU. So that means that Ezekiel Sims found her and then refound her, or it would be very interesting how they play this in the MCU. But anyways, so I forgot where I was. He locks her up in isolation when the villain Morlun was hunting and killing all of the Spider people across the entire multiverse. She's locked away for 10 years until Spider-Man learns of her existence. So Spider-Man learns about her and breaks her out of this prison, basically. And Cindy starts to adjust. She starts to learn what it's like to be a superhero. And we see that in this comic, actually, where she doesn't save. In this comic, she actually puts two people in jail for breaking into a store, and the woman thanks her and wants to give her something, and she goes, I don't think I'm allowed to do that. I think that goes against like everything that superheroes stand for. And you also kind of see the guilt in Cindy's face, and her actions and what she's saying, that she kind of feels a little guilty for doing that. Like, I don't think Peter ever did this. Maybe he did. Maybe she's going through that kind of self-reflection state where she's trying to figure out what truly happened. So in the aftermath of Spider-Verse, she's adjusting to her new life. She starts working for J. Jonah Jameson. She's still a reporter, even in our current comics. And since she was locked up for so long, she actually wasn't using a smartphone. She was using just a regular old phone for all of her stuff. Was very keen on pencil and paper, so JJJ calls her Analog. That was kind of his little pet nickname for her. So that's kind of like Silk in a nutshell, not really getting too much into the nitty-gritty. Again, this is Silk 1 from this week, is the first Silk comic I've ever been able to dive into, simply because I don't have the funds to buy Silk comics. Because she is such a big character, she was a really awesome character for people to dive into, and because she is an Asian American, that was also brand new. She was one of the first Asian American superheroes, especially female superheroes. So people ate that up. She is it's a very hot book right now, Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's Rising Sins. And I want to say for just a raw copy is about $150 in in near mint or mint plus condition. Near mint plus, even near mint minus condition, like a 9.0 book raw can go for over $100 sometimes. You never know. So obviously we don't know much about who is going to play Silk. We do know that Tiffany Espenson played Cindy, a classmate of Peter Parker in Spider-Man Homecoming and Avengers Infinity War. But neither movie had her in a significant role of any sort. We never really learned much about her. So it's going to be very interesting how they play that. So this is the biggest question, and this is how we're going to answer it. We can't answer with where will this TV show or movie, whatever truly ends up unfolding, where will that take place? We can talk about what we know is taking place and what we know has taken place. So obviously, I just talked about like that division between Marvel over here and Sony over here. Both of them can't really get along. Sony's allowed to distribute and basically is the studios behind the project, and Marvel is the studio and the person who has like the creative ideas, and pretty much it's a Marvel movie distributed by Sony. That's the best way to think of it. But they've had their differences. We honestly thought that we weren't going to be getting a Spider-Man a Spider-Man 3 because the split. It happened right before like a year before COVID, that summer, right after Far From Home had come out in the end of 2019 or the July of 2019. And then COVID happens in March of 2020. And we haven't really heard much since, except for now when we're knowing full well that there's a new Spider-Man MCU movie coming out. But even more so, we can look to two other movies that have not dropped yet: Morbius and Venom. So Morbius was delayed until this year because of COVID, and it's confirmed to take place in the MCU. So Morbius will be a part of the MCU. Now, here's the thing. You can't really have a vampire without a vampire killer. So the fact that Sony's over here making a Morbius movie and Marvel's announced a Blade movie, you kind of have to have both. They have to work together. And honestly, I think that we're going to get a really cool Morbius movie. I'm hoping and praying for a really awesome Morbius movie. And I know that Marvel's going to do Blade justice. With all of that being said, since Morbius does exist now in the MCU, and the 2018 Venom did not exist in the MCU, but the 2021 Venom, Let There Be Carnage, will be part of the MCU. A Silk movie or TV show, whatever this ends up looking like, because obviously, yes, right now it's a TV show. It was a movie. We thought it was going to be a movie for the longest time. Right now it's a TV show. We could go back to movie. We could, who knows? All we really know is it's going to be a live action, hopefully. It will be interesting to see where this takes place, if it's MCU only, Sonyverse only, or both. I personally believe it will be an MCU tie-in movie, one that obviously plays off of everything that's kind of happened in the Sonyverse, but one that allows for them to pull Silk into the MCU when she is needed or wanted, depending on how it all plays out. I think it'll be really cool to see a TV show on Disney Plus of Silk. Obviously, Disney Plus is very packed right now. If you start oversaturating, you could ruin what you have, and they're not right now because they're putting out good content and they're doing it weekly. And they're giving us a break too. That's like the coolest part. There was a nice break between WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier. Did we want it? No. Did we get it? Yeah. Was it nice? Eh. So it'll be interesting to see where that all goes. Now, let me get into the most important part of this. What should you read if you want to read Silk? So obviously, Amazing Spider-Man, when Silk is first introduced, is a great way to get into it. If you can afford it, to have it as a copy to sit there and hold, like I love to do. Or you can just get a digital copy. Marvel Unlimited, I want to say, is the app. Yep, Marvel Unlimited. Find their app and go set up an account. You can read any of their comics for $9.99 a month. So, I mean, that's going to be really amazing to be able to do. And we'll see where that all goes. With all of that being said, where I would start is obviously that Amazing Spider-Man from 2014 to 2015 when Dan Slott was writing it. Slott sets up the Spider-Verse crossover, and you can actually get the trades of those if you want. That's what I would do if I were you and you want to read it. That we don't have to spend a ton of money on one book to read the series. So volumes 1 through 6 is a good place to start. Silk volume 0 is another great place to start. That will take place after the Spider-Verse, where Silk stars in her own solo title. It ran for 7 issues. It was created by Robbie Thompson, another really great creator. And the end of the series leads right into the 2015 crossover. So then Silk volumes 1 through 3 from 2016 to 2017 takes place right after Secret Wars, and is just another really fun read. That will kind of get you into the continuation story from when Robbie Thompson was writing it back in 2015 before Secret Wars took place right after the Spider-Verse. And you kind of get to see Cindy's story in the whole newly merged Marvel universe. Again, all of these can be found in trades. I have 2 more that I would pick up, and then there's one more that you might want to pick up that she does play a role in. So 2016, Robbie Thompson also wrote a digital-only comic book series that was all about Amazing Spider-Man and Silk, the Spider-Fly Effect. So that's a good one to read. I wouldn't say that you have to read that one to really know Silk. I haven't read it. And again, I haven't read much Silk. Actually, I've only read 1 Silk book, and I enjoyed it. So I'm probably going to go buy some trades or go do something with all of it and read it online. I might actually go read it online in a little bit. Who knows? But anyways, the next one that I would pick up that's definitely worth picking up if you can get your hands on it for a good price is Spider-Women. Spider-Women came out in 2016. It was a crossover between Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, and Silk. And it was really cool, a really fun little book. From what I've seen and read, a lot of people really enjoyed it. It was something that was kind of interesting. But basically, the 3 spiders team up when an evil Cindy Moon from another universe gets them in her trap. So that's a really cool one to kind of see what they can do with the show. Maybe they do a Silk versus Silk. Who knows? Maybe this is how they introduce Spider-Woman and Spider-Gwen into the MCU. It would be very cool to do it that way. I think that would be a really fun way to see it. That's kind of what we're seeing with the Disney Plus shows. And then the last one, one where this is the newest one on this list, and it actually is one that I have thought about getting. I'm not quite sure if I will. You can get this in the dollar bins typically at your local comic shop. But it's Agents of Atlas from 2019. Almost said Agents of Atlantis. That's not it. It's Agents of Atlas, where Greg Pak, Cindy Moon team up with other Asian superheroes from the Marvel Universe, including Shang-Chi, Jimmy Woo, the Hulk as Amadeus Cho, and many, many more. And if you really want to get a true completion of all of that, you can also pick up Totally Awesome Hulk Volume 3. That's the first had these heroes team up in a Forerunner team dubbed the Protectors. So there's so much with Silk that you could pick up. Honestly, I think the best place to start is just learning about her by watching this video and learning from me, but then going to someone who knows even more than I do about her and kind of diving more into the fun stuff about Silk by reading her comics and picking up even her own limited series from 2015 and 2016 and 2017, and kind of just seeing what Robbie Thompson did with that character. It's really amazing the way that Spider-Man has kind of grown into many different characters. I'm very excited to see where they go next with all of this. And with all that being said, thanks for lounging with us. I really enjoyed talking about this, and I would love to continue to talk more about Silk and where this all might go. But I definitely think before I leave, the big spec book is going to be Amazing Spider-Man issue 4 and 5. So those first 6 issues, in all honesty, Rising Sins will be those big spec books to pick up, the ones that will really start picking up in price when everything goes down with this true show announcement or movie announcement when we originally get that trailer. Again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Thanks for lounging with us.